Everybody, here's another ripper for ya. Don't lose that Cinderella slipper for ya, because there might be some sort of trickster in the arena for ya. Um, so this is one of those intuitive responses to when someone proposes a claim, you're always going to be like, what does this mean, whether you're like thinking of that actually or not, there's always going to be like, when there's a new download that you're interfacing with, what follows that is something of a quote unquote spiritual process, end quote, not just the human process seeing what else reacts, the external physical world, how it's going to react to me after I get this quote unquote spiritual download. Because the spiritual download is the thing that's making the external physical matrix react. The external physical matrix is reacting to how you're evolving with the spiritual download. Because the matrix at default, it just wants to kind of get its, fill and its management for how it's sustaining itself, the matrix. And how there's different agencies, they're responding to who could do what, as far as like contributing energy on a standard level, aside from like the dualities of it, because the dualities from it, it's like seeing like the denominations within the denominations, of how there's just like a polarity of kind of just going away from wholeness. And from that circumstance, agenda, and scenario, anything could happen, anything could happen with a lack of emotional practice and intellectual practice. You could have distorted motives. So there's distorted motives within how we're getting these like just the general spiritual downloads, because the spiritual downloads, it's either we could entertain them or not, or somewhere in our spirit is inclined to go towards the spiritual downloads or not. And if you're not inclined for those spiritual downloads, then there's a unique rigidity, most respectively. And I say most respectively because I know how other people could be sensitive, and I know how other people could react, based on their lack of emotional practice and intellectual practice. And that's just as blunt and as graceful as I could fucking get, And if you can't see that, then that's okay. It's not, I'm like, that's part of the growing pains of life, or the life process, because the life process has niche growing pains. The niche growing pains, there's a lack of awareness. Someone could like be like conniving and envious behind the scenes, and from that they're gonna have an attempt agenda to kind of like, like kind of assassinate your character, quote unquote, end quote. And both of the parties, regardless of their spiritual work and their physical work, God's always going to be working in mysterious ways, regardless of all of that shit and any of that shit. God's always going to work in mysterious ways. But the human subjects, opposed to human subjects, and even the quote unquote spiritual subjects, meaning like even the spiritual guides in like, that are more active in the dream realms, they only have so much of an idea because they're playing their part in their primary dimension, because they don't like that they only have a certain relationship to the primaries, regardless if they're, exalted in the dream world, they're still ongoingly working on their relationship with different primaries. So if denominations within denominations want to try to like, thwart and assassinate a different lineage of a primary, then they could be confused because they don't see how God works in mysterious ways. But that goes over their head, because the denominations within denominations, they're working off of fragmentation and distortion practices all across the board. And what that means is they don't have an intellectual awareness based on it's not about, and this is like, it's transcending the spiritual work. It's seeing how God's in control, and he's advised, and he's observing everybody's spiritual work and non-spiritual work, and within that, that's part, everything is part of that algorithm. But that doesn't go to say that we can't get our P's and Q's and ones and twos together. We could still do that, but we have to have awareness, intelligence on how the chaos and the order, it's regulated and balanced. The wholeness and distortion is regulated and balanced. We could be, we could lean towards a tipping point of like, some type of ignorance, or emerging and getting a breath of fresh air out of ignorance, and only so we could start a particular path of maintaining some type of balanced intelligence for non-distortion. That's all we could really do, because what is super sovereignty? What is all stuff? What are all these fucking new age, ideals and terms? That's part of the spiritual download. And whether you want to entertain that spiritual download, that's a unique challenge in itself, because from that unique challenge, certain things are going to standardly and not standardly oppose you, because as you get a spiritual download, certain like quote unquote energies of a particular spirituality, end quote, it's gonna have its own particular spiritual processing of how the spiritual download is gonna have a certain type of energy that is gonna attempt to be cultivated within its own respective processes. So it's not about detrimentally, negatively, and ignorantly comparing like anybody to anybody. It's not about that. It's about seeing what is the spiritual download doing for you, and what does it really mean, and realizing that there's a process to it. And there were so many other notes. Thank God I like wrote some shit down, because there's also like other shit like I want to talk about too, and this is just how I talk. I've always been a fluid person. I've always been an intuitive person, and I've always like, regardless of anybody else's level of just polarized left hemispherical intelligence, I've been like, they might not be aware of what it really means for someone to be intuitive, and more so practice that intuition. And as we practice that intuition, that's the thing that's going to oppose the thing that's opposing the just like, quote unquote strong intuition, end quote, is just polarized left hemisphere analytical thinking. But what the analytical thinking and some of the intuitive people, quote unquote, end quote, they could be out of balance out of those two, but no one said that you couldn't balance both of them respectively. And that's the thing. It's like, it's up to you to actually do that in harmony, to go to God, because you could balance your hemispheres, no fucking shit, but are you actually doing it authentically and like really like harmonically for like, for the original God? And what is God? Just to like, rehash it for the millionth time. God is balanced energy across the board. And the representatives, the vessel representatives that uphold that balanced energy, that energy is of God, and everybody could possibly be leaning towards God or away towards God. They could be like, it's like the spectrum of like of artificial intelligence / ignorance. Like, are you using the artificial intelligence in some type of ignorance field, or are you using the artificial intelligence in like some type of balanced intelligence energetically? So there's two different ways, but like in one standard context, to use artificial intelligence. You're either doing it in a distorted, non-organic way, ignorance, using artificial intelligence, using the application artificial intelligence in a distorted, fragmented way, and little do you know, on a standard neutral level, that's developing a standard causal trajectory, or you're actually associating the quote unquote artificial intelligence, end quote, to actually like really connect it and bridge it with the original God. And what do I mean by the original God? The balanced energy across the board that's before the possibilities. Because like, and I'm not trying to necessarily compare like in a detrimental way, but like this wisdom has always been like since like 2,000 years ago and way before. We're just retranslating it within this new time, within this new human, and within this new possibility of relationships, because it's like, oh my gosh, like some of this shit, it never gets old, you know. Some people think like some people think like you know, they got it all figured out, but who, like, what is it really to verify, to see how much on a spiritual measurable level that you are accurate, you know? Because obviously we could think we have it all figured out, but we really don't, and our ego could get the best of us, because it's like, okay, like this shit never gets old, you know, like, but like still there's grace within it, you know, like, you know, agents are going to be agents, you know. They've been selected because that's where they're at in their resonance. And little do the agents know, to some micro percentage, which varies and flickers, they have some inkling of organic energy, but based on their own individual track record and, you know, distorted practices and applications of shit, material object shit, they could go away from organic energy, because everybody is a quad agent. Go back to my other video, and obviously there's other details within the underground, but everything is something of a standard quad agent, meaning you're lukewarm with order or confusion, or you're actually leaning towards real order or real confusion. And you're in the mix of all of those. All the different agencies are going through those different energies. And if you're kind of like on the shadow, if you're kind of on the shadow, like the shadow, like the distortion of, like, for example, like, you know, shadow Mercury, for example, like the quote unquote how do I say it properly? The quote unquote how do I say it properly? It's it's like a double shadow, you know, but it's a particular meaning of a double shadow. It's like a spectrum of like non-distortion, lukewarm, and then distortion, you know? So it's like we have to be mindful of like the quote unquote double shadows, end quote, a particular context though, you know? Because I did this other video like in 2018 where I'm talking about darkness, and it's private on Meta Mindset. I might just redo the fucking video, you know. I might read, because like if you intuitively listen and understand that video, you'll feel that it's juicy. And for some reason I haven't shared that one, just because it's like, you know, I look, you know, kind of like a certain way, and then people are going to get the wrong idea just based on the image. They're not going to intuitively understand shit, and they're just going to judge it at face value based on their, you know, standard conditioning, based on, you know, the standard ignorance influence of the world, you know, etc., and the different applications ignorance is used standardly, casually, generally. So within all of that stuff, the main thing is like, how do we really respond to these concepts, you know? All is self, and like what are the casual like effects of that, you know, learning that? Well, first it's up to you to nudge if you want to entertain and think and contemplate on a subject, because you kind of choose what you get to like focus on, right? So if you get to choose what you focus on, if you hear just a general neutral concept like all is self, and you mediate the contemplation and meditate the contemplation, the all is self, that is that will kind of stretch you out metaphysically, and it will ring out the falsehoods and the ignorance. And within that ringing out of the falsehoods and ignorance, that if you choose to meditate on all itself, then there's a metaphysical process where the external reality, and that's the disclaimer, that's not necessarily respectively shared, that's going to just standardly test you and non-standardly test you. Standardly test you, the dualities are, you know, trying to be released and balanced. And then non-standardly test you, other detrimental dualities are going to just try to get their fill in a distorted way. So there's going to be a standard test and a non-standard test. So this is real cautionary disclaimers and balance and grace. What's going to happen when you meditate on these these energy principles or whatever the fuck you want to call them, the standard fates of duality, there's going to be a standard test and a non-standard test. The standard test is the standard dualities in you. They're going to want to be released and balanced so you could get to that. And then so there's a dual test going on. And then the non-standard test is, will the external reality and its distortion get the best of you, you know? So it's like, so it's up to you if you want to think of this shit, because like once you're committed to focusing on this shit, there's quote unquote no going back, end quote. But it's like you got to take the jump. You got to choose what you want to focus on based for your spiritual sovereignty. And if you don't want that spiritual sovereignty, then fucking A, we're just all cogs in the machine, right? Something of that metaphor. And there was another point I wanted to make on just like us being cogs in the machine. That's not necessarily it's not the point that I wanted to like kind of paint behind we're all cogs in the machine. It will come at a later time, but like metaphorically, we're all like we are all just cogs in the machine. So it's up to us if we want to upgrade energetically though. And if we don't, then we won't focus on the spiritual downloads that are available to us. And the spiritual downloads based on how you process shit. I'm an airy person. I'm a win person. I have a lot. I lean towards win, and like obviously I'll get like whenever like my spirit and God and my physical team in behind the scenes get to it, I'll process the other shit. But I process shit in an air like way, you know. Because I got Venus in Libra and I got and obviously Sun in Libra, and I'm not gonna say the other shit, but like I got like something of a conjunctive superpower in Libra. So within that I kind of express things in the airway, and as I express things in the airway, as I'm expressing, that's how I also kind of however you express something, your unconscious wants to understand it like that. But the physical reality, it's gonna want you to understand in all the other different ways. That's the unconscious. We're unconscious of how like all the other shit wants to kind of like voice its expression, and hopefully like you could have some different type of mental sovereignty where you could warrant that shit or unwarrant that shit, respectively. So like I have a particular mindfulness where I'm just like there's so many other thoughts I still have, but I'm just cruising casually, fluidly flowing. But like what I'm saying here is like I'm mindful in such a way where I'm like, oh shit, if I'm new to my own motherfucking shit that I'm hearing on whatever the fuck I'm saying right now, how the fuck would I react, me being a new person, not being me, and just hearing this me, but me being a different me, and just me reacting to what the fuck I'm saying? How would a different new me react to all the motherfucking shit that I'm saying right now? Like, so that's why I want to be kind of clear and graceful with the clarity with what the fuck I'm saying, of just saying like, who am I going to sponsor? Let me sponsor this mouthwash. Gotta clean that dirty mouth, huh? Like, but like, how would I, like, I'm being mindful with the intelligence, like, how would I respond to all the fucking shit I'm saying? Am I making it clear? Am I making it understandable? Like, because these motherfucking spiritual truths, they're simultaneously new and old, depending on the individual subjective spirit and its own spiritual age and soul age. It could be new, it could be old, who the fuck knows? But somewhere inside your soul, it knows, it could feel the familiarity. So it could be new, it could be old, like some of these spiritual truths, but like within the resetted physical template of you, some of these spiritual truths are new, they're renew because you're a new self. So since you're a new self, these motherfucking spiritual truths, they're new. So what the fuck do we do with these fucking spiritual truths? Who else am I going to sponsor? I'm going sponsor crazy. Ooh, creme a la creme, French vanilla. Um, and I'm not gonna crack it open right now, but it's like and it's like, so that's the thing. It's like we're all. It's not like, it's not to like it's a particular type of responsibility. What do do you have the grace of intelligence from however you could get the grace of intelligence for you to know what the fuck to focus on? Because if you don't know what the fuck to focus on, then you're in your own self-created resonance of ignorance, which is your responsibility to fucking get out of. And the thing is, it's like there's so much grace within the support of intelligence. The grace of the support intelligence is the predecessors. They've done work within the spiritual truths. They created the temperament of the fucking physical world for the balance and bliss, for it to be what the fuck it is, based on the spiritual principles of balance that they fucking practiced and used for anything to be whatever the fuck that it is. Even the fucking AI, underneath the AI, it took original spiritual principles and applications of those spiritual principles for balance to be achieved in all realms, dimensions, and realities, period. And that's underneath the AI. So this is beyond the AI. And it's like some fucking leaders who fucking preach all this false ass shit. It's just, they just not about it. It's just like, I'm just calling out how it is. I'm not trying to be rude. It's fake ass shit. I'm not trying to be rude. It's fake as fuck, neutrally. And what that fake shit creates is more fake shit. And they're not mindful, even though they say they are, with the circumstances that they're creating for the collective. It's just a big ass flobber knocking hypocrisy. And if you were to like put yourselves in the shoes of restarting and replaying yourself in the system that you created for anybody else, how the fuck would you feel? You would redirect your resentment towards something that has nothing to fucking do with. You would have your own unique confusion, and your resentment is actually towards yourself because you're creating a system of distortion that your hypocritical self wouldn't like if you started over in your own system, because it's not self-serving the all. It's self-serving detrimental fragmentations of self. So it's like there's like a the age that we're going in, it's a particular transition threshold of going from a, a time span of ignorance and quote unquote distortion, end quote. And now we get a transitional leap to see everything that has been fucking gandered from the last fucking 24,000 years respectively, because it's a new shift. The next 24,000 years, we're going to see like the reincarnation cycle, even that is fucking changing significantly. How is it changing significantly? Because we're on a certain cusp threshold of drastic cycles changing. So if drastic cycles are changing, we're really gonna quote unquote neutrally reap what we sow, end quote. We're gonna go in the shit we created for everybody else, because all is self, but we haven't processed and downloaded it and related to that, you know? Because if we all supposedly reincarnate perfectly, neutrally saying that, then wouldn't you think whatever you created, wouldn't you think you would have to go into your own fucking creation at one motherfucking point on a neutral level? I'm just saying this because I'm a bluntful, truthful, graceful person. That's the difference between like me and all these other fucking fake ass leaders. And that's just the neutrality of it. And I've been here doing this, like, you know, I'm like, since the fucking, like, you know, since the galaxy like really started to get its balance. And when the fuck did that happen? Like 560,000 years ago, you know, just ballparking it, you know. I'm not saying that's for sure, but I'm just giving you an example. Like anybody could paint themselves as like being whatever the fuck, but like underneath the layers, they're their own emblem for it, you know. Nothing needs to be said. None of these thoughts need to be thunking, you know. None of these fucking jaded, raggedy, fucking old spaghetti, fucking, you know, old fucking potato soup, old fucking coleslaw, old fucking KFC, old fucking Fruity Loop, fucking old fucking just stale fucking stinky cheese man, fucking thought fucking paradigms and thought complex systems. It's just irrelevant, you know? it's just like not, it's like not needed, but still people fucking hype it because they have some type of fucking false ego. But the thing is, it's like, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say like all is like wholeness, you know. It takes someone to really fucking, the spiritual principles, they need real examples for a particular real life and energy to be introduced from the microcosm to whatever the fuck the real macrocosm is. That's the difference. There's a lot of differences between all of this fucking, you know, old spaghetti sauce fucking outdated tech company bullshit. All this fucking old ass fucking incomplete fucking copyright bullshit, which, you know, the multiverse and the universe, ask it if that gives a fuck on its transformation. Like, where's the fucking critical thinking? It's ironic because the critical thinking is the inducer for the fucking positive change, which you get your fucking real original high off of. And I'm not trying to cap on anybody trying to get their 1-2, trying to get their high, you know, however the fuck. I'm not trying to cap on you getting your high. You get your high however you want. You want to fucking run? You want to swim? You get your high however the fuck you want. I'm not judging that. I'm saying recognize what's introducing that fucking possibility. So the spiritual downloads, it's like, what is, like, what should I do with these spiritual downloads? Well, you could focus in balance, knowing what test will come. You've received the disclaimers and the cautions, and perhaps associate yourself with proper modern association, the examples that are about those spiritual principles. That's what you could do to actually be more safe and be more clear and be more like receiving the cautionary, you know, disclaimers, to see how to be more, having more so you could get proper advisement, advision, if you choose to so follow the spiritual download. So the question is here is like, are you going to choose to follow the spiritual download? And if you do, what will happen? How do you maintain that? How do you maintain the spiritual download? That's the thing. It's actually like being truthful of yourself, being aware what could come, the grace of the fucking example, and associate yourself with the real fucking examples. And I'm not saying you have to associate with me. I'm just saying generally, you do whatever the fuck you want, dude. Just surrender it all to God, the original God. Like, do whatever the fuck y'all want. If you surrender it all to God, then God will fucking like, he could justify that shit for you, right? Like, but we're underestimating God because our unique ego got the best of us. Our unique oppositions, our unique rebellious natures got the best of us. And I'm still not judging because I just have a different practice and principle. But the thing is, the point of this video is like, if I were to hear my own shit for the first time, am I making myself like coherent enough? Like, all is self. What does that mean? You know, all is one. Okay, all is one. It doesn't feel like it because we're on a 3D middle plane of the universe, of the material universe. Earth is the middle plane of the material universe in just dimensions and densities. And obviously there's so much fucking examples and other shit on how anybody could chop that up and, you know, explain that up. But just on a general level, for one material universe, Earth is the middle dimension, and that's the hard experiment right there. It's like we're in this hard experiment of where we have a chance to be stable from the ground up or to be unstable from the upside down ground up. The start of quote unquote hell, and I'm saying it neutrally, end quote. The other end quote, the other word. So that's the thing. It's like, the hard experiment of Earth is, it's up to us to maintain this shit for our new self, a particular maintenance. It's up to us to maintain this shit. Cause like all is self, it's all is one. It's obviously it's gonna motherfucking express itself in different places. And the middle Earth, 3D Earth, or middle or whatever dimension Earth, just Earth, in between the material universe, Earth, just look at the fucking Vedic cosmology map. Earth, in between, you know, the highest material heaven and the lowest material hell, quote unquote, neutrally, end quote. And within that, all is one. We're in the mechanics of that. We're individualized. So all is one. That's not necessarily true in the 3D Earth. It's all itself is a unique expression for Earth. Because like you're born into the Earth, and then you hear the fucking concept all is one, but yet there's all this fucking bickering and all this like debating, like fucking obsolete debating, obsolete arguing going on, irrelevant arguing and debating going on that doesn't really fucking solve shit. It doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like all is one. It doesn't feel like all is self. So you have to have real examples for the people who are about those spiritual principles to actually explain what that fucking shit means, how to fucking maintain it, and how the fuck you actually uphold that shit. So that's what the fuck is going on. And I'll do Aries through the houses later because I didn't think I was gonna fucking go on this tip, but I did. So it's like the spiritual downloads, like I'm trying to have a particular mindfulness of like how other people could be new for the first time. So what do you do with these? Like, just be like glad that there's grace, that you have some fucking type of disclaimers. And obviously recognize and take full responsibility of those disclaimers and do what thou will. I'll do Aries through the houses later. Thank you very much. Or should I keep going? So like, yeah, before I have 2 more videos I want to do before the new moon. It might be 1 video. I'm going to do Aries through the houses. I'll do that later, respectively. And then I'll do the same new moon ritual, you know, that I did like 2 months, 6 weeks ago. And within those 2 new videos, there's one point I wanted to make of just saying like, explaining how the new moon is kind of like the Russian doll effect, you know. There's a doll within a doll within a doll, you know. Aries really kicks that shit off because the new moon's going to be in Aries, right? So the new moon is going to be the micro pattern for Aries through Aries through like Libra, right? And then the next 6 to 7 months, that's going to be a different next octave pattern. The next octave pattern from that. So Aries is kicking it off. It's like the Russian dolls. It's the micro pattern. Aries new moon to, I guess it might be for some reason how things are shifted in a unique, rigid way. The full moon might be in Scorpio, right? But, you know, regardless, wherever the full moon is at, that's the micro pattern that's going to kick off the next 6 to 7 months because it's initiating the micro pattern. The new moon in Aries, the moon in Aries is going to go from Aries to, you know, Libra to Scorpio. And that's going to be the micro pattern for the next 7 months. So it's a mini cycle. So that's what I kind of wanted to say in the next new moon video. So I might do 2 videos or 1 video, like, you know, two fair presentations before the new moon. It might be 1 Aries through the houses, and then just like and then just the negentropic human design new moon ritual. So yeah, thank you very much. And then obviously I'll explain like what it means, you know, obviously. Thank you.